It's time for Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock with lots of news in the world of mixed martial arts today. As always, John Ramdeen will be by. We will be chatting about all of the biggest stories of the day, including a new main event for Bellator 132, post-fight drug test comeback for UFC 182, and the UFC counters Bellator with a free agent signing. Mirko Filipovic is off the market and back to the UFC for a third tour of duty with the organization. The news was made official on Tuesday with Krokop re-signing and had last fought for the UFC in 2011 and left the company after 3 consecutive losses. Krokop posted a 1-1 mark for the Glory Kickboxing organization in 2014 and also won the IGF heavyweight title last August, which he still holds. Krokop had also been negotiating with Bellator during this time. Bob Bennett, the executive director of the Nevada Athletic Commission, confirmed to MMAfighting.com that all post-fight drug tests for UFC 182 have come back clean. Of course, there was extra interest in the results for John Jones after he tested positive for cocaine during a December 4th unannounced test but did pass his post-fight drug test. The career of Cung Lee looks to be over as Lee issued a statement on Tuesday announcing his decision. The 42-year-old was still under contract to the UFC, but following all of the fallout from his drug test after the Michael Bisping fight, he stated he would never fight for the organization ever again. Lee transitioned over to mixed martial arts in 2006 and became one of the key attractions for the San Jose-based Strikeforce organization and culminated with a middleweight title win in March of 2008 when he defeated Frank Shamrock. Lee debuted for the UFC in November of 2011. Bellator President Scott Coker announced on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani that Bellator 134 on February 27th is going to feature Mohamed King Mo Lawal moving up to heavyweight to fight Czech Congo on the British Invasion card. Lawal started off his MMA career at heavyweight in 2008 with 4 of his first 6 fights at the weight class, but has fought exclusively at light heavyweight since 2010. Both Lawal and Congo have won their last 2 bouts in Bellator. Here with John Ramdeen to chat all of the news in mixed martial arts. What a packed one. And did you think that we would be talking about Mirko Krokop, not so much fighting again, but fighting inside of the UFC? I will say all bets are off in 2015 in terms of who is going to get signed. It's an arms race right now between the UFC and Bellator. I was somewhat surprised by this one.
If you had this time last year, yeah, I'd be surprised. But seeing the whole landscape of mixed martial arts kind of change with this Bellator situation.
If you have any name attached
exactly,
to you,
it's a good time
no
to be
one's
a
off
free
limits.
agent. That's right. It is a great time to be a free agent right now. And I'm sure the UFC hates that Bellator is doing this. And is Bellator, you know, I'm surprised they would announce it. You know, you go and you sign Mirko Krokop. You don't announce that you're going after Mirko Krokop because the UFC is just going to come up and snatch up.
Puzzling decision. It just looks like you got scooped.
I know, it's really funny. But it's great for the fans because you get now just the idea of Mirko Krokop re-signing with the UFC. Clearly the UFC, they're kind of showing their fanboy attitude here by bringing in the old school type of guys. You just hope that they use these guys in the right way. Mirko Krokop versus Quinton Jackson, come on. This is the type of fight.
Well, you bring up Quinton Jackson. The fact that this guy is getting matched with Fabio Maldonado, I think that tells you everything.
Exactly, and that's probably how they're going to utilize these guys moving forward. Rampage does not want to be on the ground with somebody on top of him, humping him, as he would say. Instead, he wants somebody that's, you know, has that pride mentality, and the pride mentality is the attempt to finish the fight. My goal is to knock you out. Your goal is to knock me out or submit or some sort of variation of stoppage. That is the goal, and Rampage just believes that North American mixed martial arts isn't like that. It's more of the Phil Davis type of style. How can I compete with you? How can I hold you down? If I have to hold you down and stall out for 3 rounds, I'm going to do that as long as at the end of that allotted time, my arm is raised in victory. Rampage just wants guys that are willing to bang it out inside of the octagon.
Let me ask you this. Back in 2010, Dana White stood in front of Chuck Liddell and said, we are not going to let you compete any longer. And Chuck Liddell wanted to continue his career. If that were to happen right now, is Dana White stopping Chuck Liddell from continuing? Because I would say no.
Well, it depends, because you look at, there's certain guys out there, and Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes and others, these are guys.
Those are 2 guys that both wanted to continue.
They did, and it's because they have a relationship with the UFC. There was never any type of animosity. There's been animosity between Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz and BJ Penn and Quinton Jackson. So the UFC is like, okay, I don't care if these guys get their brains smashed in. What do I care? Whereas, you know, Matt Hughes and Chuck Liddell, their loyalty has been with the UFC since the beginning. So the UFC is like, wow, these guys are my guys. I don't want anything to happen. Instead of that, we'll give you some some executive jobs. That's the way it works.
One man who is not getting an executive job with the UFC is Cung, leaving on very bitter terms with the organization with the fallout of the HGH test when he fought Michael Bisping. He still had fights on his contract. I'm certain that Cung would have loved to have gone to Bellator, but that option was not there, and I didn't see the UFC releasing him and just allowing him to go there, whether you agree or disagree with how everything went down. But Cung, I don't want this last couple of months to really define this guy's career, who was an incredible crossover as he rose up in the Bay Area, was a key star for Strikeforce. I think the peak of his career was the Frank Shamrock fight. That was a massive fight that Strikeforce put on back in March of 2008.
Yeah, and his contributions to mixed martial arts are undeniable. He was a K1 star as well. Scott Coker promoted him when K1 was in the U.S. So, he's just one of these entertaining fighters that was able to, I want to say combat the UFC because, at the time, I think most casual fans only believed there was one brand, and for Strikeforce to be built on the shoulders of guys like Cung Le and, of course, Nick Diaz and Frank Shamrock, and the list goes on and on. It was really AKA at the time and all the fighters that they produced. So it was a really great time to see that, if you remember that Strikeforce at one point, it was the highest selling show in North American history with 18,000+ people. I think it was Frank Shamrock and Cesar Gracie.
Yep.
And I think Cung Le was also on that card. So you look back at the history and it's like, okay, there's something to this. And from there, it got to grow and grow and grow. And because of it, we got to see this sport grow all over North America, the UFC and Strikeforce, and people got to see it on Showtime and so on and so forth. So it was really instrumental in helping build mixed martial arts in North America.
Yes or no? Do you like King Mo going up to heavyweight?
Oh, why not? If he can compete. I'm a big fan of guys going back and forth in weight as long as it's the right matchup and they can do it properly.
All right, packed day of news. More Fight News Now Extra is coming up. Stay tuned.